when you go back and look around like 2000, 2002, 2003, at that point, emerging markets went through many crises, Latin America, Asia. Latest actually would be Turkey and Argentina in 2002. And after that, they kind of enter in this period of very fast growth. China is very famous here, but there are other countries grow that fast, like Turkey, like India. And learn that kind of based on a lot of the things they learned from those crisis episodes. For example, they learn how to do fiscal monetary policy mix, which is now advanced countries are super excited in the light of COVID, but emerging markets actually learn this the hard way, and they know how to do it very well. They learn the dangers of excessive public debt. They learn the dangers of dollar debt, that in another country's currency. And so they also learned in terms of how important to anchor expectations and control inflation. So this kind of gave them like a good basis point in terms of, okay, so we are part of the global system. They are very integrated to global finance and global trade, and they realize this can work against them and for them. And they really made the best of it, basically, in the decade before the Lehman crisis, and even after that, even like pretty much between 2010 and 2018, that was also a good time for many emerging markets, actually. So in that sense, when you think about a small open economy, an emerging market, you think a country that is heavily integrated to global trade and global finance, and also, experienced many financial crises on many dimensions, in terms of government debt, banking crisis, currency crisis. They experienced all these things, and they accumulated a lot of lessons, and they have to grow. They realize they have to grow. So these are the countries also, it won't be enough to grow a couple % a year, right? These countries have to grow like 5 to 8% a year because they are still in their catch-up growth phase. So this is kind of the emerging market world. And one other thing we also learned from this world is how sharp the recovery, what we call V-shaped recovery for these countries are after financial crisis. I mean, even sharper than advanced economies. And that's actually, let me tie back to Turkey. This is what happened to Turkey. If you take the long view on Turkey, like last 20 years again, Turkey went through its worst financial crisis. It was a triple crisis, a government debt crisis, a banking crisis, and a currency crisis in 2001, 2002. And after that, Turkey observed a very sharp V-shaped recovery that coincided with an IMF program on the table because they have to get money from the IMF in 2002. That was a full-fledged program, structural program based on many reforms had to be done. And that program was in place pretty much until 2007, right before Lehman collapse happened and we had the global financial crisis. And at the same time, another thing happened for Turkey is becoming a formal accession EU country in 2004. So those years, like 2000, 2008, kind of were golden years, right? The country was growing like super fast, as expected from any emerging market after a very deep financial crisis. On the table, there was an IMF program, obviously, that helped a lot. And on top of that, you have the EU accession, which put a whole anchor on the reforms you need to do because you have to harmonize everything with the EU role. So those were like these great years. Turkey, of course, entered this financial crisis, with the kind of corrupt government, the wrong policies and all that took place, especially between 1999 and 2001. I mean, 1999 was a very tough year. This was the earthquake year, and the earthquake caused a tremendous loss to Turkey, but it was also a fixed exchange regime country. So we know, again, from small open economies, basically every fixed exchange regime country went into crisis. Okay, and Turkey was that was the last war. Turkey and Argentina, really, they went back to back into these, balance of payments crisis, which basically, if you're a fixed exchange rate regime country, this just happens at some point. I mean, it happened to, European countries, to ERM crisis, famous in 1992. So Turkey, and then earthquake really kind of make that come quicker, right? Because they had to do a lot of government debt. They have to borrow a lot domestically and externally. And you have a fixed exchange regime country. That means, you are, promising that you will never use monetary policy. So you do everything with fiscal policy, but of course you mess up the fiscal policy, and then your credibility of the peg, the fact that you are not going to use monetary policy to stimulate the economy. Once investors stop believing in that, that's it. That's when you lose the peg, and everything just then, culminates, and you end up in this triple crisis. But in terms of economic reforms, everything basically was the IMF program. I mean, IMF, gives you the money on the condition that you do A, B, C, D, E, F. And all those things were great for Turkey because it involved pension reform, banking reform, structure, you name it, all the reforms you want for growth done during that period of 2002 to 2008 with the IMF program on the table. So what government did is they didn't mess up that up, they could have, and they pushed for the EU accession. But EU accession, again, it's not that they did it, right? Turkey has the longest standing application. When Turkey applied 1987. Turkey applied 1987, and Turkey already had a custom union in place, the only country at the time. All these things kind of a perfect good storm, right? It was a perfect storm came together, and you had this amazing growth during that time. But I don't think it should really be attributed to the government, apart from the fact that they didn't mess up with the IMF stuff and they didn't block the EU accession. The EU accession thing is super important, right? So in fact, the current economic crisis in Turkey and the larger security crisis in the Middle East and Europe is because EU and US backed away from intensive engagement with Turkey. So this is extremely important. I really want to clarify that. Let's first get our dates straight. I wrote them down so that I also get them right because they are so old that it's unbelievable. So again, Turkey joined Council of Europe 1949, founding member of OECD 1961, NATO 1952, longest standing application to EU, I told you, 1987. And in 1996, with a lot of push from Washington, custom union started. Turkey and EU implemented the custom union. You remember from the exit of Brexit days, how Turkey used as a model during that. That's 1996. Okay, so the accession is again early 2000, full accession with the AKP government. And in fact, this was so impressive that it affected my PhD. I was doing my PhD at Brown at the time from 1995 to 2000. And my dad was actually in the government, and his signature was on this application of the EU accession. So, this affected me in the sense that I have to work on EU integration, economic integration, and financial integration. In fact, a lot of my early work is on EU financial economic integration. Now, this, created wonders for both sides. Okay, wonders. So let me give you some numbers again. So first of all, EU-Turkey engagements really established a lot of good things in terms of the security. Think about the early days and how the threat from Middle East and everything was diminished. FDI quadrupled. 3/4 of all FDI comes from EU to Turkey. Export to EU grow over 60%. Turkey is Europe's fourth largest trading partner. More than 300 Turkish entrepreneurs employ 2 million workers in European Union. And Turkey, thanks to this, grow at an annual rate of 6.5%. So these were all amazing. And at that point, everybody realized that it was great. So now what happened after 2008? This is before 2000. Okay. After 2008, first of all, global financial crisis happened, European crisis happened, enlargement fatigue happened. As you said, all these countries, Bulgaria's of the world, and again, I'm not naming names here, but everybody came after Turkey. Okay, everybody applied after Turkey, plus most of these countries were actually communist countries way longer than Turkey, right? Turkey is a democratic republic since 1923. So you now have an environment where crisis happened, right? European countries growing slowly, and you have enlargement fatigue. Now we are talking about 2009, 2010, 2011. So what happened there is then EU, and this of course combined with all these policies, short-sighted policies from Turkey in terms of starting limiting liberties, having a more, as you said, Islamist government phase. So they all came together, and now this is another perfect storm. Now this is a bad storm, and this led, Turkey stray away from reforms, doing short-sighted decisions, and EU, completely closing the door to Turkey's face, right? So both sides are to blame. And obviously, I'm not going to defend Turkey's decision on many things, but EU is equally blamed here, right? So they shouldn't have back away from engagement. Of course, US didn't help because they had their own problems. I mean, this is a period, again, advanced countries went through a financial crisis for a first time in their history for a very long time, right? And from the European perspective, it is actually even worse than US because this was their experiment. So 10 years of euro, just celebrate 10 years of euro, and boom, like now you have these huge crises, right? So what you do, of course, you just don't have the time or the patience to deal with countries like Turkey or with a leader like Erdogan, right? But this was a mistake. I mean, I'm not a politician and not a diplomat, but I grew up in a household with a very good one. So I know the difference between the good politicians and the bad politicians and good diplomats and bad diplomats. And EU didn't do their job, right? They knew that Turkey is super important for them in terms of economic and basic military security. I mean, this is the bridge between you and this other part of the world that all sorts of bad stuff is happening, right? You know that, but you lose the sight of that. You shouldn't have lost the sight of that. And that's what, EU did wrong. And after that, of course, everything started going downhill, right? So that comes to your point. I mean, pretty much between 2011 and 2015, country took a more authoritarian tone. The coup happened in 2015. Okay, you know what? We are not going to deal with you. We are only going to deal with you if it is in our direct interest, as we saw in the case of a Syrian refugee crisis. So it may never happen. You're right. But this would be a colossal mistake for both sides. And why I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful, because I think the current US administration, US has an important role here, and this newfound dynamism in Europe, especially after COVID, I think these things are going to come together, and they are going to push this to a good stage forward. Because everybody realizes at a very basic level, this is in the interest of everyone, right? It is culturally different country, but there are many culturally different countries in that group. So, I mean, if EU would have stayed like, 12 countries, then it would have been very easy argument. But after bringing all those countries and you become this big with so many different cultures, at this point, the only explanation left is religion, right? And that doesn't look good on Europe, on that side. And so in that sense, this cannot be a rejection explanation. On the positive side, having Turkey in EU is going to have tremendous positive effect on both sides, including the security issue. So it's a no-brainer, but it has to require intensive engagement from good diplomats, good politicians on both sides.